I have not masturbated for 700 days. In this video, I would just like to share an audio clip with you from a top psychotherapist, Robert Augustus Masters, talking about how he treats porn addiction in his clients. And I think Robert really gets to kind of like the root cause of why people have porn addiction in the first place. And if you are struggling with porn or porn addiction, I really think giving this a listen will really benefit you. I got permission to share this audio clip with you from Man Talk, the person who had this podcast, and I hope you enjoy.
Can you unpack for us, in your perspective, why so many men turn to pornography? Let's just start there. Why do so many men turn to pornography?
Because they're in pain. And they learned early on, one of the quickest ways to have relief from pain was, as a teenager, was masturbation. Maybe with fantasy, maybe without, with porn or without. They get a little older and they realize they can increase the charge with porn. They get pulled to certain types. And when I'm working with a guy who's really into porn, what we do is we look at, first of all, what he's into and how that ties into his early life. Then the first bit of homework is, when you feel that urge to use, ask yourself, what am I feeling? Besides lust and craving and desperation, what am I feeling emotionally? How old do I feel in that? So we identify his age before he started to use it, the sense of the feelings he has. And usually men will report they feel anxious, maybe angry sometimes, lonely, troubled. And this is a quick release. So my work with men is not to say, oh, it's bad, you shouldn't do it. It's more like to say, let's outgrow it. And here's how to outgrow it. And you have to start with that. You have to turn toward the pain that drove you into porn in the first place. We're back to square one. Turn toward the pain. In this case, it's emotional pain. And spend some time. Sit with that little guy you once were for 5 minutes. Tune into him before you go and jack off. Just tune into him. Stay with him. Then there's other steps that can be taken. But that first step is the big one, to turn toward the emotional pain you were in when you first discovered the relief of ejaculation, and after that, use of pornography. And I find men really receptive to this. It's like it's a relief, like it's something they can do.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of shaming, especially not just shame, but shaming around pornography. And I feel like a lot of the times when the conversation comes up with guys, that's how it's really approached, is that there's a bit of a shaming, like you shouldn't be doing that, or that those types of narratives. And I feel like it leaves men not even open to the conversation because they already feel like they're in the wrong. And so then they don't want to talk about it. But
exactly.
Yeah. And I really like the perspective that you're bringing up, because you're saying, be willing, like, what if you outgrew it? Then what's on the other side of that?
Yeah, well, like it's an adventure. It's an adventure. Here it is. I've done this. I've gotten pretty good at it, and it's not serving me now. How about outgrowing it? How about it's like taking up a new form of exercise or new meditative practice? Outgrow it. And when you outgrow it, the one reward, of course, is you become far more capable of real intimacy with a woman or another man. You become capable of that, because a pornographic mindset is no longer running you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really powerful. And in terms of, just for the listeners that are out there that might be considering something like this, how would you recommend that they go about that? Because for me, when I decided that pornography was no longer, and I love your lens again, when I hadn't thought about it this way, but when I wanted to outgrow it, it started with me just taking 30 days away and just saying, I'm not going to look at it, use it at all. And that was my process. But I'm curious as if you recommend how guys can go about this process, because I found it very challenging. And I know a lot of men find it really, really challenging to break away from the use of pornography.
Well, first thing is, don't shame yourself for it, but also it does not mean condone it. Okay, that means I can just go ahead freely, because there's some damage being done, especially if you've got a partner and she's really upset about it. I think the first step is again, turning toward the pain that underlies it. And I have a really big section in To Be a Man on it. And I think it's also very, very helpful to have a skilled guide. Go to a therapist you trust, a male therapist, and work on this, not just intellectually, work on it. And if you do all the steps I've listed, there's a number of them, and stick with it, something can happen. And there's also one's will. Like you had the will to say no you took a chunk of time. Some men's will is weaker, But there are practices, and it's the same practices you do for your deep work anyways, just to connect with the inner child. You get more in touch with your conditioning, early abuse, and this became a major solution to their pain. They're not about to just give it up like that. So they have to be worked with very skillfully, and no shame if the habit doesn't disappear overnight. It's more like it's more of a marathon than a sprint. But once you apply yourself, magic can happen. Like for you, you did enough. You haven't gone back, I assume.
No, I haven't.
Are you tempted?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, what I found was that for me, it was those high stress times in my life, and it was literally one of those means of, I was never into drugs. I went through a period in my early 20s where I drank quite a bit, but for me, porn and those side of the things, that and sex especially, was a means of release. It was a means of stress relief.
But see, here's the thing. Let's say you're still tempted here and there. You can then do the practice of, okay, what am I feeling now? What's Connor feeling right now emotionally? And how old do I feel right now? What's coming up for me as I do this? Then there's no shame around, okay, it comes up again. And you can even tell your partner, this is coming up for me. I don't want to act on it, but I want you to know this is there for me. And odds are you're probably not feeling that happy when it happens. There's probably more stress, some anxiety, and then it doesn't become like something you want to say to yourself, I never will have this again. It's more like, here it is again, big surprise. I'm feeling kind of lonely now. I feel a little agitated. I feel a little bothered with my partner right now. Something, and you start to identify it. And of course you would want to act out, and of course you also are mature enough to see through it. Then you don't treat the habit as something to beat yourself up for. So it's still in you, probably a little bit here and there, little flickers. It's like our inner critic. No one gets rid of their inner critic. It's still there. Mine feels like a mosquito in the back corners of my psyche most of the time, but it's there. It's there.
And so it's really the process of the awareness. It sounds like the awareness is really the first step of being able to move through a lot of these components, to just acknowledge from a space of non-shaming.
Compassionate awareness. Yeah, the compassion is so crucial. Compassionate awareness and choosing to become intimate with the habit. Like here it is, a habit you've had, a lot of men have had, and choosing intimacy with it. You want to know it inside. How did this arise in me? Where did it take me? Why did this type of porn pull at me more than that type? I like to examine the details with men rather than just saying, because it's just porn. I want to know the details because I can connect it more to them personally. And you know what? At the heart of porn is eroticizing of our old wounds. And women have just as much of that going as men. Eroticizing our wounds is a practice that it's not specific to one gender. That means taking the charge we have with an early situation in life, the excitation, the negative excitation, and sexualizing it. So then suddenly we're acting it out. And I have a whole bunch on that in the book too, on what it means to eroticize our wounds.
All right, I hope you benefited from listening to that audio clip. Lots of people try to overcome their porn addiction through just like pure willpower, but Robert Augustus Masters really gets to the root of why we have porn addiction, and through compassion and awareness, I think his approach is an integral part of the healing process. So I hope that audio clip benefited you. If it did, I really would appreciate it if you would give a thumbs up to this video, to like it, comment. If you're new to my channel, check out my other videos, and please subscribe. I'll put a playlist of my other porn addiction and no-fap videos below. So a friend of mine recently recommended me a book by Robert Augustus Masters, 2 of his books actually, and I'm working through one of them right now, which is To Be a Man. And so far it's excellent. And there's a section on porn addiction in that book too. So anyways, as I'm reading this book, I'm going, wow, this Mr. Masters guy, he's really onto some stuff. So I decided to YouTube search Robert Augustus Masters porn addiction to see if he had anything on YouTube talking about this topic. And I found a podcast where for 10 minutes of that podcast, he talks about how he treats porn addiction. And I liked it so much, I thought it would really benefit you guys, that I contacted the Man Talk TV, the guy who did the podcast, and say, hey, I just heard this 10-minute clip of your podcast with Robert Augustus Masters. I loved it. I was wondering if I could clip that 10 minutes and share it with my audience. And he gave me permission to do so. So that's kind of how this video came together. So I hope that benefited you, make sure to check out Man Talk TV or his podcast, and he has a YouTube channel. Big thanks to him. I'll put a link to his channel and the full podcast down below. Check out Robert Augustus Masters. I'll put a link to his book. I've just started reading it, but so far it's excellent. To Be a Man, he talks about porn addiction, our shadow selves, shame that men have. It's a really great like psychotherapy book. Big thank you to my Patreons. Follow me on social media and have a great day. Peace out.